whenever you experience any sort of loss of faith or crisis of self, loss of belief structures, it could be anything from becoming disenchanted with your religion to maybe you've just gotten out of a long relationship, a marriage where you found out somebody was not faithful. Could be, even more extreme sickness, death in the family, something like that. Anything that sort of rattles the core of the assumptions you held that guided your life. The initial questions seem to have a lot more weight. They can create much bigger obstacles to any sort of progress. So I just want to be just a little bit more clear on what I believe about certain things. So you'll see this a lot whenever you watch, if you watch a lot of Alex O'Connor debate Christians, the question of why is there suffering, why is there pain, seems to come up a lot for him. It's very typical of, or not typical, it's a pretty traditional line of questioning. If God is good and loving and all powerful, why do we suffer? Why do we have those experiences? If the creator of all things has no intention for us to have that sort of life and have those experiences, and people come up with all kinds of answers for that. I don't purport that any sort of creative deity has pure bliss or pure pleasure or any of that in the cards for us. So the question is, why is there pain and suffering? I see this in two parts. The first one is there is a very practical benefit to experiencing pain, at least in the physical sense. It works like a radar, like a troubleshooter. It helps orient us from experiences that are detrimental to our health and survival towards experiences that are good for our health and survival. It physically hurts to be hungry. People get hangry, it doesn't feel good. Well, that's your system telling you that you need to go get something to eat or you're gonna starve to death. You can think that if nobody ever felt hungry, if we didn't have that experiences, a lot of people probably would starve to death. You just wouldn't think to go get something to eat. You have to experience pain. If your hand is in a fire, your hand will burn off if nothing is telling you in your system, hey, make this change, make this move. So there's a practical utility to the experience of physical pain. But I think also there's a deeper layer to that question where it's more, why do we have existential pain and suffering? Why do we have emotional suffering and anguish at a little bit more of a profound level? And for me, because I believe that everything exists to help us dispel the illusion of isolation and aloneness, cultivate harmony, cultivate stronger bonds, cultivate more robust connective tissue at an interpersonal and social level. For me, pain and suffering is actually what helps forge those stronger connections. The same way you may have the stress of weights on your body system helps your body become stronger, helps everything grow together. If you do compound lifts, really any kind of weight training, is going to cultivate stronger bones, stronger muscles, a stronger system. Nobody really creates deep, meaningful relationships with another person based solely on shared, pleasurable experiences. Like, even if you had a lot of good times with somebody, if you've never endured hardship sort of shoulder to shoulder with them, you're really not gonna have a very profound relationship. You're not gonna have a very deep relationship with them. That's why, and I think I mentioned this before, it's why if you're joining any sort of military group, a lot of the training is designed to just make everybody suffer together and have to work together and have to kind of, proverbially huddle together for warmth. So I think, because for me, the point of us being here is to dispel the illusion of being alone and realize ultimately we're all one, to kind of overly condense that. The only way you're going to get there is if we suffer, and if we suffer together, shared suffering. Somebody's opened up to you about some loss or some sadness they've experienced. All of the best responses are not, hey, let's ignore it and let's just go cheer you up and have a good time. It's always somebody else sharing a common experience, giving you understanding, giving empathy, giving sympathy, and just sitting in that space with you maybe for a little bit. So that for me is where pain and suffering all fits into this equation. What happens after we die? Again, I sort of see this in two practical ways, or in two ways, one more practical, one a little bit more esoteric, I think we might call it. The first one is whatever happens after we die, the experience will be comparable to, I believe, what happened after we were born. I mean, I don't have any true existential fear of death. Now, I'm a warm-blooded mammal. If you light me on fire, I'm gonna scream and roll around and try to put myself out. Like, I don't want to die. I like being alive, but I know that existentially I don't have this belief about it, like it's unnatural or that it ought not be. You know, if you can think of times you've fallen asleep totally unconscious, I believe death would be a lot like that. You know, it'd be a lot like what we experienced before we were born. It's not aloneness. It's not being locked in a dark room forever. It's not like we're trapped in a coffin, but we're awake and sentient and just alone in there. It's nothing like that. You know, again, it'd be like what happens if you sleep without having dreams. You're not there. Or again, before you were born, what was that like? Stop and try to think about it. What was going on? What experiences were you having before you were even born? You were having it was not experiences. So there's not this vacuum where you're sitting in total aloneness. So there'd be something like that. I don't think there's anything worth fearing in that regard. But let's say you want to take it in a maybe a slightly more spiritual direction, and you're thinking about the different claims made by religions. You know, I remember asking one of the pastors when I was young, kind of grilling him, what is actually known about heaven, what's actually known about hell. And I got an actually really honest answer, which was practically we don't know. We don't know what heaven looks like or what hell looks like. You know, what most people conceive of when they think of hell is really just stuff taken out of Dante's Inferno, right? Which was total fiction. But it's become just so culturally prevalent that people just make that assumption. That's literally what it's going to look like. And what I was told was that heaven is perfect unity with God. Hell is perfect or imperfect, total separation from God. Total aloneness, being completely forgotten and forlorn. And that always stuck with me because there are a lot of that imagery gets repeated in a lot of what I'll say are the mystical sides of a lot of religious traditions. You read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, you see a light. If you recognize there's a connection between the light and yourself, if you see the light and you see that is, you belong to it and that is within you, then you merge with it. If you don't make that recognition, you still see yourself as being separated from the light. Oh dang, I got my hands all in the way. And you still see yourself as being separated from the light. You go back and you're reincarnated or something like that. You come back as a bug. Yeah, that's gonna bit it. If you know a more accurate description, I'm all ears. And so I think that is us recognizing, coming back to what I was saying about the purpose of us being here, being found in relationships, that comes back to us seeing that in some way our life here is about recognizing connection and creating harmony with other people, creating communal bonds, being your brother's keeper, or just being kind of a selfish POS, right? You just go the other way. And we recognize that people who are completely self-centered and all they want to do is take and consume and destroy that connective tissue, they're separated and cut off. You know, maybe it's literal. Maybe when you die, if you were a net negative on the humans around you, you're just sort of cut off. What is it, like chaffs in the wind, something like that. You merge back. Or the positive outcome is you recognized that there was life and consciousness and meaning beyond just your life, and you can give of yourself to other people. And when you die, you merge back with your creator, which again, I view that as sort of the source that everything sort of springs out of.